Alright guys, welcome back. So in this video, we are going to be learning about data transformation or using the transform option in Microsoft Power Query. Over the time, we have been exploring different functions under the Home tab and we've done very great. Now, under the transformation tab, we have a variety of functions that we are also going to be trying out. We have already seen how we can use the group by function to group our data by a category. Another option that we have here of function is use first row as headers that we said that by default, Microsoft Power Query would have done that for us. But in a situation when Power Query did not do that, then we can easily come to transform and use the first row as headers. Another option that we have here is the transpose. Transpose is basically converting your data from horizontal to vertical or from vertical to horizontal, depending on the arrangement of your data. So basically, the right data type or the right format for data is the vertical orientation. But depending on your requirement or the type of database management tool that you are working with, that will depend on the kind of orientation that we're going to be working with. So if I try to transpose this from vertical to horizontal, it can take a lot of time depending on how sound and fast your system is, or strong in some cases. And if your system is not that very strong, I would advise that you just do not try out the transpose option. You already know what the transpose is going to do, or you can try it out in Microsoft Excel using a very simple and small data set. So the transpose data is going to convert or simply change the orientation of your data from vertical to horizontal. As you can see, this is now changing my data to Office Supply Los Angeles, United States, instead of Office Supply Los Angeles, United States, and so on. So this is how data transposing works. We also have the option of reverse rows. So the reverse rows basically is just turning your data upside down. Now we have from like horizontals, then if you say reverse rows, then the last row is going to be your first row and your first row is going to be your last row. So it's going to turn the whole table upside down. And that is what the reverse rows works as. We also have the count rows, which basically is to get like the overview of what the total number of rows is in your table. So in this table, we have 551,290 rows in our table or records. We also have option of data type, which we have explained before. We can also detect data type if it is not in the right format. We can rename a particular column, which we have also explained using the shortcut by double clicking, or you can just come to the transform option and say rename. And here you can rename your column. We also have the replace value, which we explained before. We have the fill, which is very similar to our Microsoft Excel fill option using the flash fill and so on and so forth. We have the pivot column and then the unpivot column, how you can make different columns to come as one. For example, if I say I want to pivot the country column by category. So the pivot column is not something that we usually see or that we usually use depending on the type of data that you are working with. And you have to be careful and make sure you understand the concept of pivoting and unpivoting columns before you use them. If I try to pivot country column by category, so what I'm going to have is asking me for the values. What values should be inside of the country column, which is basically what I'm selecting. So use the names in column country to create new columns. So all the items that are inside of country columns, or let me try and use the category instead of the country. So it's going to use all the names inside of the category to create new columns. Then I can now assign a values to them. So maybe I'm assigning the sales values to them. So it's going to create office supplies as a single column, the technology as a single column, which are all the values that are under the category. If I say OK, for example, then it's going to pivot all of these items, the values, and make them a column on their own. I'm also going to try that. I'm also going to try that with the country column so that you see how it works. So you can see we have the office supplies, then all the values that we have for office supplies. So this first customer is actually under the technology and not under office supplies. That is why we are having 50 under technology and no and we're having null under the office supplies because the customer did not make any purchase under the office supply. Then did not make any purchase under furniture as well. We also have the 54, which means all of these customers are under office supplies, or they made the purchase under office supply. And the next customer here made a purchase under furniture. So the pivoting means we want to create a new column based on the values that is inside of another column. And you can simply undo this by doing the opposite, which is unpivoting. Mind you, under the category column, we have 3 categories: office supplies, technology, and furniture. And they were under a single column before called category. Then when we now pivot it, what we have is going to assign them each of the columns and turn them, each of the record is going to turn them to a column, which is office supply, technology, and furniture. So if the first customer falls under office supplies, then it's going to assign the value. Then if not, then it's going to say no. For example, this first customer make a purchase under technology, null under office supply, and null under the furniture. This is how to use the pivots, and you can easily do the unpivots if you want to go back to the previous step. You have to be mindful that you actually have a use case to use the pivots and unpivots before you start working. See you guys in the next video explaining other concepts of data transformation under the Transform tab in Power Query.